I've been saying for a while on JTV that the Palestinian cause is a cynical ploy to get rid of Israel. That's what it's about. It's not about a genuine, authentic nationalism, a desire for a free Palestine, a Palestinian state. It's not about that. It's about getting rid of the Jewish state. And it's about religion. It's about an Islamist supersessionist worldview. And I want you to watch Mossab Hassan Youssef, the son of a Hamas co-founder and leader, expressing this very point. Have a watch.
Palestine is non-existential. It's just a device that the Muslims use as a weapon against Israel and as a weapon against the Jewish people. Fundamentally, Muslims think that Allah hates the Jewish people. And how can they love the Jewish people if their God that they bow 20 times a day hates the Jewish people? So I am not here to speak against the Muslims, but I want you to be aware of this fundamental problem, at least in your subconscious. You need to have this somewhere, that we have an existential threat. And now you see it in reality, how they were able to just turn the narrative against Israel in no time. And this is why from the beginning of the war I said, Muslims, you have to back off. This is not acceptable to take the side of a terrorist group that just committed a genocide, a capital crime, unforgivable crime, by the name of resistance and by the name of occupation, colonialism, etc. Not acceptable. And now we have hundreds of millions of Muslims and Arabs spreading propaganda. And as you see, when people see it thousands of times per day, they start believing in it. It becomes real. So it is the time to move from defense to offense, to call things for what they are, to see them for what they are, and there is no need to be afraid. There is no need for us to be depressed. I have been fighting against Islam alone, by myself, for so many years. And I don't need the permission from nobody. If they want me to cease to exist, this means that I have to fight for my life. And you are in the same position right now. I'm not calling for a religious war. There has been a religious war. And it's about time to wake up. I'm not saying that we go on a war with the Muslim people, but at least we need to educate the rest of the world that we are in danger. Some people out there, hundreds of millions of them, want us dead. And we have to defend ourselves.
Basically, this whole issue of the Israel-Palestinian situation is a question of, do you see the Palestinian cause as a legitimate grievance or as a hateful ideology? That's all it comes down to. If you think that it really is a legitimate grievance and you buy the narrative that the Israelis are these foreign occupiers and they're just aggressive and the Palestinians are acting this way because they just feel so oppressed and they're angry and they are resentful and so they want to resist, then you'll have sympathy for movements like Hamas, the modern day Nazis. But if you understand that they are just that, modern day Nazis, that the lamentations of the Nazis, the grievances they had, were not legitimate. It is not legitimate to want to kill the Jews. It is not legitimate to want to take over all of Europe and then the rest of the world. It is not legitimate to want to ethnically cleanse much of the world, to kill people who are special needs, to kill people who are from ethnic and other minorities. Then you'll understand that this is not something that you can try and appease. And that's what it is, and that's what all the evidence points to. Just study the history of the Palestinian movement and leadership, and you will see, both past and present, it has always been about a hateful ideology that just cannot make space for a Jewish state. And you want to know why they can't make a space for a Jewish state? It's not because they think this is their land and that it's some kind of, they have some Palestinian national identity because they consider themselves Arabs and they'd be happy to be part of southern Syria or Jordan or whatever would have happened if the Arabs would have won, God forbid, in the 1948 war, where it would have just been diced up into Syria and Lebanon and Egypt and Jordan, their land. So if you understand that, then you'll see that what's really going on here is you have a religion, Islam, which teaches that Muslims are the new chosen people. They accept the tenets of Judaism, and then they say, but the Jews were forsaken by God. Their evidence being, well, the Jews were scattered, weren't they? Exiled from their land, dispersed, wandering the earth, cursed by God, seemingly. And so their narrative works very well. The lowly Jews, and we're going to make them dhimmis, we're going to make them second-class citizens, and Jews for many centuries were oppressed in Arab lands. No, not just in Christian Europe, but yes, in Arab lands as well. Yeah, there were times when things were okay as well in certain areas and at certain times, but many times things were very difficult and there was a lot of oppression. And so, what does it mean? How do you make sense when that's your whole theology, that Islam is going to take over the world? It's a supersessionist theology, and it's saying we're the new chosen people of God. How do you make sense of the fact that the Jews, after 2,000 years of exile and persecution and suffering, suddenly these lowly Jews return to their homeland? They're gathered in. And not only that, they make the land flourish and bloom again, just as is prophesied in the Bible, in the Torah, in Deuteronomy specifically, where God says he will gather us at the end of our history. Suddenly, it seems like, no, the Jews weren't cursed. They actually had a mission in exile to spread Torah ideas and values to the world. And then they would be returned, which would kickstart the redemptive process. And so, what does it mean? What does it mean that that's happened? Well, there's basically two options. Option one is that God never forsook the Jewish people. That the Torah really is true, and that this covenant really is true, and it really is eternal. That's option one. And that means that your theology is going to need a paradigm shift. Option two is, no, we're not budging. We're not budging from our theology, from our supersessionist view. We have to insist the Jewish people, they are not the messengers of God. They are not God's people who were chosen to be his voice to the world. No. It must be that this is a test from God. Must be that this is a test to eliminate. We must eliminate this state. It must be an evil that needs eliminating. We're being tested. And so that explains how they see things. Now do you see why Israel is so threatening to the leaders of the Arab movement? And as one Saudi official told Jared Kushner, who was acting as a Middle East peace negotiator, he said, the Arabs have to bear, the Palestinians, the Arabs of the Palestinian territories, as they are known, have to bear the weight of the Muslim world on their shoulders. And that's why. This is the reason why. And so given the fact that Israel's not going anywhere, and given the fact that the truth is the former, that God really hasn't forsaken his promise to the Jews, and that his relationship and his covenant with them remains, given all of that, therefore what's going to need to happen is two things. Number one, the Jewish people going to have to be absolutely clear in stating this truth, because that I really believe is going to be a key part of the solution. And number two is that the Muslim world is going to need to have a theological paradigm shift, a theological maturing. And this can be a wonderful thing, because as Rabbi Sachs taught in his book, Not in God's Name, chosenness doesn't mean others are rejected. It just means you have a specific mission. One group of people have a specific mission, but every nation, every individual is here because they're necessary and they're needed. And so you can either choose to be jealous and envious and resentful of other people's roles, or you can say, what's my job? What am I needed for? And what do I have that I can only bring to this world that no one else will? Which is a wonderful thing, and all the dignity one needs in the world. So that's the change that's going to need to happen, and Mossab is right to highlight this. We have to stop indulging this idea that the answer to the Israel-Palestine situation is just to give political prizes and appeasement and all these things. I want to finish by quoting to you the words of Sol Stern, a journalist and author, who said, "How dispiriting it is to recall the many occasions over the past 100 years on which well-meaning Israeli officials fell into the trap of believing that this Islamist Nazi ideological movement could be bribed into relative normalcy with political gifts and accommodations." That's it. That's the problem that it seems some people in the West and around the world are still falling for, especially on university campuses. We have to stop falling for this nonsense. It's just not true. It's a hateful ideology that's the cause of this problem, and that's the thing that will need to be addressed in order to fix it and bring ultimate, long-lasting peace. I'm Ollie Annisfeld, and you're watching JTV. Hi, thank you so much for watching. To watch another one, click here. To stay up to date with all our content, click here to subscribe. And if you're able to, you can help support JTV to grow and grow by clicking join below this video, where you can become a member and get perks including early access to videos and private live discussions with me. But most of all, you'll be partnering with us on our mission to change the world.